Greetings, fellow armed citizen. My name is Patrick Kilcherman, and you are about to listen to 2.5 hours of audio that could very well change the way you see the world, the way you see yourself, and the way you interact with the people around you. That, at least, is our goal. We want to help arm you with the physical and vocal responses that will help you diffuse and deflect active threats without the situation ever having to fall into a physical altercation. On this CD, you will learn the background information that will be necessary to properly learn from the coming examples, as well as how to respond to an aggressive instigator, someone who just wants to fight or cause trouble. On CD 2, you will learn how to respond to a disorderly drunk, as well as a gang of thugs. On CD 3, you will learn how to respond to an armed, determined attacker seeking to do violence to a third party, how to respond to someone who is demanding money, as well as how to respond to a deranged or mentally impaired attacker. On that final CD, you will also learn the key differences between attackers who are seeking victims and those who are seeking challenges, and more specifically, how and why you need to be able to tell the differences between the two immediately. Friend, sit back and relax as you join to learn with us in this candid, casual conversation. Hello, this is Patrick Kilcherman with the United States Concealed Carry Association, and I am joined by Josh Pelliser and Brad Osborne. Josh Pelliser is currently in New York City. Is that correct, Josh?
Yeah, unfortunately.
New York City, anti-gun. Brad is in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and myself, I am in mid-Michigan. So I just want to start this interview off with some quick roundtable introductions, and I will, of course, go first. Okay, as I said, my name is Patrick Kilcherman. I'm employed by the United States Concealed Carry Association. Before I became a member in 2005, I believe, in the same boat as most people when they decide to become armed citizens. I had just gotten married, and I suddenly felt the need to protect my wife. So that's kind of how I started along this whole road. And of course, that brings us to today. Fast forward quite a few years, a lot of learning, the easy and the hard way. And today is hopefully going to be a huge plus for all of you guys toward learning the easy way. We're going to be going over a few of my shortcomings in the awareness area, as well as 6 stories from USCCA members on a few hard lessons that they learned. Mm-hmm. So that's about me. Josh, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I just had a book published with the USCCA called How to Recognize and Respond to Potential Threats. Obviously, you got it now. So I'm the author of that book. I have been studying body language and psychology of body language for about 5 years or 6 years now, very aggressively for the past 5 years. I went anywhere from just helping people build confidence in the beginning, general confidence, to at some point being, relationship expert, dating coach, things like that as well. And my job took me sort of all over the place, all over my field, the field of psychology. And what I sort of recognized in the beginning of my studies was that a lot of this psychology is underdeveloped. And we see a whole lot of study and a lot of money kind of dumped into abnormal psychology, but not a whole lot of money is dumped into practical psychology, which I believe at the core, owning a gun, carrying a firearm in general, requires a massive amount of knowledge, an above average amount of knowledge of practical psychology, especially being able to read people. And, because you do have the power to, and the undeniable power to take someone's life in your hand, or on your body, strapped to you at all times whenever you carry. And I think that is an enormous amount of just potential. Could either be good or bad. And I think that the armed citizen has an above average understanding of practical psychology. So whenever I started writing this book here, I was very excited about it, and I got to use my body language assessment techniques in my trainings, and I got to teach other people the same techniques and trainings that I hadn't. Some of them I'd never been able to teach anyone before, because some of them are required that you have an understanding already that you're vulnerable, or that you don't know everything. And the members of the USCCA are the only a group that I think were qualified enough to listen to this and get this information. So I'm very happy to be here. Patrick and Brad, both very good friends of mine as well, and I'm happy to be giving any kind of knowledge that I can and learning as much as possible and sharing some personal, most likely humorous stories about how I've screwed up in the past and how I've come to learn some of the knowledge that I have now. So hopefully this will be very beneficial to everyone.
Oh, I know it will. Very good. And Brad, do you want to say a couple things about yourself?
Sure. I've basically spent the last year developing my knowledge of both concealed weapons and social dynamics. So I have a good cross section of what each Patrick and Joshua, are learning about and teaching. I've actually studied under Joshua. I mean, the company he worked for before taught me everything I know about body language, and it started off, listening to Joshua in podcasts actually. So I know firsthand that what you guys are about to get is solid quality information that literally changed my life. So pretty excited to be working with both of you, and hopefully I'll have some interesting things to add to the conversation.
I'm sure you will.
Absolutely. I guess I'll take the stage for a second because I think as far as most armed citizens learning career goes, I've been pretty much behind the ball on every aspect, and I'm slowly getting there, but I have learned a lot of things the hard way. And I just want to share a couple pretty humorous observations that I had to take from my young life. And I guess it just helped me realize that social dynamics and awareness, and especially awareness of potential threat, can be pretty tricky. And the first time I learned that, I was on a vacation in Tennessee, and I'd never been to the South before. I didn't even know Southern people sometimes didn't like Northern people. Apparently that happens.
Yeah,
that happened with me with. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
That happened with me with Catholics and Protestants. I was like, oh, they've been hating each other for 1,000 years.
It's interesting because I'm from just south of the Georgia border in North Florida, and my parents live in a log house. I grew up in a trailer park, so I had a thick Southern accent when I was a kid, thick, to the point where kids were making fun of me. And in Florida, it's all the schools are rich Northerners and poor Southerners, so I was in the latter category, and it was obvious to me. It's so funny to hear people say, I had no idea that the South didn't like the Southerners didn't really like the Northerners, because every day of my life, all I heard were, damn Yankee this, and I was like, really? But my family was really Southern, really Southern. Some of them were redneck, and some of them were just country. But there wasn't much in between. It's one of the two. So it's pretty funny to listen to you guys say this.
Oh yeah, it's crazy how polarized it is, and especially for me. I mean, I was kind of a Civil War buff back then, and I don't know. I guess I just figured the whole Civil War thing happened, and people just kind of went home and forgot about the whole we're extremely different from you thing. But so we were at this restaurant waiting for our table to be called, and there was like a 45-minute wait, and it was hot out, but we were all out in the parking lot, and this pickup truck drove by, and there was 3 teenage guys up front, and just 5 or 6 of them in the back or something, and they had this huge rebel flag in the back. Mm-hmm. And I don't remember exactly what I yelled, but it just okay, that's disrespectful, so I yelled something to the effect of hey, put away that rebel flag. And and one of the kids, the truck was going really slow, and obviously the driver didn't hear me, but it was going slow enough they could have easily jumped out if they wanted to, but it never got that serious. But a kid in the back did stand up, and he got really, really mad looking, and his face was like, what? And I just kind of I literally slowly started sitting down. I was like, nothing, and I just waved my hand. So
wow.
Yeah, that was the scene in my life where I realized that you're not a master just because you're completely comfortable where you are, for example, in your home or even in your home state or town. The second you step out of that, you got to forget everything that you know about, the reality that you live in, because it's possible that somebody doesn't like you just because of where you're from.
Right. And not just that. Being master of your domain has one major flaw, that when you leave your domain, you're no longer master.
Yeah.
And that's a major flaw. So a lot of people focus on being a big fish in a small pond, but when it comes down to it, it's better to be comfortable in and fit in and be able to control, for the most part, or understand every situation as much as possible than it is just to focus on mastering one situation, because you'll be stuck in that one situation for the rest of your life, because when you leave it, you have the fear of losing all your value, losing all your control. And so it's really humbling, though. I'm sure you had it was obviously taught you a lesson that was deep enough to where now we're sitting here and there's an interview and we're talking about it,
Yeah.
So it was kind of a big deal, but at the same time, it just kind of reminds me that I got away with a whole lot being from the South. I could probably say that to somebody in the South from where I'm from, because everybody knows my family, because I have 36 first cousins,
Wow.
and they're all Southern. So, and they all know me. Everybody knows me. So, I was friends with pretty much everybody. It was easy for me to do. But, I step out of that. I go to some place that's even more Southern. I mean, very far North Florida, but South Georgia area is pretty Southern, but it's like laid back Southern, slow Southern.
Mm-hmm.
You go over to like Alabama, or you go, even some parts of Texas, it's a different world. People don't care. So I mean, just because I fit in, just because I feel like I'm Southern, and I'm proud to be where I'm from, for sure. I don't disrespect anybody whatsoever from where they're from. Obviously, I think all of the U.S. is a beautiful place, and this whole country is built on the blood and sweat of the people before us, regardless of where they came from. None of us are from the U.S. We're all from other places. We all came here to have the rights that we have now. So, I think that we're all a unit, but at the same time, I'm humbled to know that I don't belong everywhere. Actually, it's a funny story. It kind of reminded me of your story. I was in the only real time I fired a shotgun. So I never really hunted. All my cousins did, and I never really did it. I don't know why. I just wasn't really excited about it. Didn't really care. When I was younger, at least.
Mm-hmm.
And I had an opportunity to go up to Kansas to hunt with a friend of mine, to hunt pheasants, which is phenomenal, by the way. Great. It was a lot of fun. I had a really good time. And in Kansas, I had a few things happen. The first thing that I had happen was I killed a bird, right? I killed a pheasant, but I didn't kill it with a gun. Someone shot it, and it was trying to run, and I got it, and I had to kill it,
Mm-hmm.
And this thing was staring at me while I was looking at it, and I was about to kill it, and I was just feeling for the first time in my life how I probably should have felt every time I ate meat, which is that I'm taking something's life right now, and it's giving its life for me, it's dying, and I'm gonna eat, and that's how it is, And so I was like, I felt this this amazing gratitude that I was like, I'm sorry, but thank you for this, and I killed it, and I killed this bird. It was looking straight at me the whole time. It was scared, and I had to break its neck, actually, and it was a really just eye-opening experience for me. I think so many people go through their lives without really realizing this. We're so detached from the actual violence that brought us what we have,
Yes.
And if you're not willing to go that far and take that step, and do what you have to do, you probably shouldn't be enjoying the leisures that come from that act. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I was like, after that, I was like, you know what? I can eat meat. No big deal. Because if it comes down to it, I will kill something on my own if I have to eat. It's not a big deal. I think that that was a big eye opener for me, and I think that a lot of people kind of go through an experience similar to that. Maybe not with the meat eating thing, but I just had an internal issue. The second thing that happened was there's one bar in Logan, Kansas. Logan, Kansas was where I was, and there's one bar because Logan, Kansas, including surrounding areas, has a population of 800, so it's a pretty small place. It's real small, and I'm a fast talking Southerner, and in Kansas, they're not really Southern, but they are, It's like their country, and they are slow talking country. Everything they say takes a while to get out, and when it comes out, it was worth saying, And so I was there, and I'm not sure if you've seen, Pat and Brad, you know me, I have some tattoos on my left arm, and that is not normal, So I show up there with a bunch of city guys who are from Detroit, and we show up, and luckily, we know some people who are there, and I'm thinking, I don't fit in here at all. at all, not even a little bit. And I'm like wearing a cowboy hat and stuff, and everyone, it was like the record. I walk in, the record goes skirt, you know, and everybody turns around. Like people are literally playing poker, people are literally shooting pool, sitting at the bar. There's guys, a row of guys at the bar, sitting there with a bottle of beer, not talking to each other, just looking at the beer. And everybody, when I walk in the door, turns around, looks at me for a second, and stares. And I was like, all right, what do I do? This is classic, you know? What do I do in this situation? This is a time in which I really wanted to, this is sort of toward the beginning of studying social dynamics and being able to try to use situations like this and get out of them and belong in a situation like this, you know? Mm-hmm. And so I walked to the bar, and of course the bartender is this woman, and she goes, "What can I get you there, cowboy?" You know? Obviously making fun of me a little bit. You know, everyone goes back to doing what they're doing. And I'm like, "I'll take a neat Jack Daniels." You know, and I'm like, I better drink this whole goddamn thing. or I'm going to be in big trouble right now. So she goes, okay. So she gets a Collins glass, which is like a 12-ounce glass, and fills it to the brim with Jack Daniels. To the brim, 12 ounces of Jack Daniels. And she goes, that'll be $10 there. And I was like, oh my God. So I'm like, no, I'm not showing you this in my face, obviously. I'm like, no problem, you know, hand her $10. But inside my liver is like, I hate you already.
No.
So I saw one guy still staring at me. He's the biggest guy in the bar. He was probably about 6'5". One of the tallest guys I've ever seen in my life. And not just tall, but muscular, playing pool with what looked like a toothpick. You know? His pool cue looked like a toothpick. He was so big. And he's still kind of looking at me through the corner of his eye. And I just like, here we go. I downed half of the glass. I drank 6 ounces of Jack Daniels. Just boom. I put it down and make no face. Just like, all right. And inside my body, I'm going, no! You know, I'm freaking out inside, but I don't show it, obviously. And then whenever he saw me do that, he went back to playing pool. And I was like, man, I can't believe I survived that. So, you know, about 45 minutes later, 6 ounces of whiskey kicks in, you know, and I'm starting to feel a little bit tipsy. So I go up to the biggest guy there, and I'm like, hey, man, what's your name? And he goes, Jesus. And I go, Jesus? He's like, that's what they call me. And I'm like, wow. So I was like, okay, well, do you mind if I play the next game, Jesus? And he goes, well, I reckon that's okay, you know. So I'm like, okay. So I go talk to my friend, and he goes, oh, yeah, that's Jesus. They call him Jesus because that's what everybody says when they see him. Because he's got gigantism, and he doesn't stop growing. So he keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. There's stories about this guy, about how he lifted up a cow lifted up a cow off his front legs and turned him around because he turned him backwards in the stable. And like just crazy stories. Wow. So I get through this entire night, basically. By the end of the night, no, I'm playing pool with Jesus, and and he's just beating my ass at pool. I mean, he's amazing. And he starts calling me Tattoo, you know, and I start to fit in, you know. But for a while there, my life was on the line. Really, that's how I felt. I felt like I could just get the crap beat out of me, and no one would even care. They just throw me outside, be like, someone will come pick him up later, you know. And so that was the beginning of like the hard knocks school of learning about social dynamics before I really started studying psychology and realizing that there's a safer way to do this.
Yeah.
But I had
to
go through the same thing.
Guys from Detroit.
The guys from Detroit, one of them is the guy who taught me everything I know about banter. So about basically saying nothing but making people feel comfortable and laughing. And because he's that guy, he had no problem doing anything. He's fine. He fits in wherever he goes. And he's a week before that, we were both at a yacht party at the Chicago Yacht Club, staying in a mansion. And the following week, now we're in a ranch in the middle of Kansas, you know, in a rain, in a thunderstorm, you know, with these cowboys. So he fits in everywhere, and he was kind of the inspiration in the beginning for me to start studying a lot of the social dynamics that I study and that I teach now. So he was fine. I don't have to ever worry about him unless there's a girl around. When there's a girl around, he has no idea what to do. I don't understand why that is, but he's just completely clueless with women. But yeah, so he was fine, and I ended up getting out of the situation. But it kind of reminds me of this one, where it's a really humbling experience for me, where I was like, wow, I guess you know, I got by just like you did, Pat, you know, in that situation. But man, I don't know how, and I got lucky. So.
Absolutely. And actually, the Jack Daniels story, I mean, I really like that, and it reminds me of kind of my second note here, which is about positioning, I think.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know all the technical terms and stuff, but I did do some studying of Dave Grossman's On Killing, and he talks a lot about position and stuff.
Mhm.
And the Jack Daniels thing uh, kind of reminds me of, like I say, my first lesson in positioning, which occurred in high school. This kid, Brad, I probably shouldn't say his last name. Actually, I don't remember it, but you remember Trey?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, he was like a year older than us, and I don't think he was actually ever held back, but he for some reason was taking a sophomore class when he was a junior. And
He's a very intimidating cat.
yeah, yeah, this kid, I mean, like I don't know, he was just positioned. He positioned himself perfectly to be like the bully or something. I mean, he
Yeah.
wasn't a bully, but he was very scary. And I was a little kid, let's see, sophomore year, I was probably like 125 pounds or something like that.
Yeah.
And so we're in class, and this kid was always trying to, intimidate me. And of course, I didn't know that then. I just thought he was just a jerk. I didn't know
Yeah.
anything about anything. But he said something in class, and I said something back because I mean we were all sitting down, like the teacher was up front, and I thought it was yeah, pretty safe to talk back to him now because the teacher's right there. He's not going to do anything in front of the teacher.
Right.
But he gets up and like walks across the aisles, and he's like walking right towards me, and I'm sitting down, so I stand up and face him, and there's nowhere to go in between these two little tables, and he like stares at me for a second, and then he does one of these like fake out lunge towards you kind of things to see if I'm gonna like flinch or back up.
Uh-huh.
And normally I would have. I mean, I would have been like, I'd back up really fast. But I like blinked or something. I don't remember what happened, but for some reason something happened so that I didn't know that he was doing that until after he had stopped. So I didn't flinch at all. And like he didn't like smile or laugh or anything. He just like kind of turned back around and went back to his seat. And I sat down and I realized like something just happened. I wasn't sure what it was, but the fact that I didn't flinch like told him something. It was
Yeah.
weird.
That's really interesting, man. That I'm not sure if everybody has a story kind of like that, but I sure as crap have one. Like, I had a similar story just like that. I mean, I was a little kid too. I'm still pretty thin, I don't weigh too much, but I had I was probably about the same weight you're saying, like 125, 130 whenever I was a sophomore, maybe even lighter.
Hmm.
And I was probably about 5'8" or so, back then. And I was this is actually before I was a sophomore. This is actually in middle school. My story when this happened. There was a kid, same kid. Every school's got this kid. He's like for some reason, he's in 6th grade and he's 6'4", and he weighs 220 pounds, and no one knows why he's there or why he has facial hair already, but he does.
Sounds like me, except for the facial hair.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was like, but this guy, my guy's name is Carlos. He's Carlos, and he was he was kind of a big bully too. One day, he and his friend, before the teacher got to class, it was like a home ec class that no one really cared about anyway, or an art class, and they decided they would want to try to put me in the trash can. So which I thought would never. I was like, this is no way this is happening, So I managed to not go in the trash can only because I was able to knock the trash can over while they were trying to do it, and I was madder than a hornet. I was fighting mad afterwards, and I don't remember, like I didn't think about anything. I just picked up a big heavy metal chair and threw it at him from across the room with all my force, and I didn't think about anything. I was just thinking. I was seeing blood. That's it. And I didn't think, what happens if this doesn't kill him? Because it better kill him. Because if he's not dead, I'm going to be. But at that point, I wasn't even scared at all. I was like, I would jump on top of this table, and I will fly into him and get the crap beat out of me. Like, I will run into him screaming, And I threw the chair at him and hit him in the leg, ended up hitting the leg. And everyone in the whole class is just, everyone stood up and walked to the edge of the room, backed up, and I wasn't registering any kind of fear yet. I was just so mad, and he picked the chair back up like with one hand, like no problem, and pretended to throw it at me, And right when he pretended to throw it at me, I ducked under a table, and he didn't let go of it, and the teacher walked in, and here I am hiding underneath the table, and he's got a big chair in his hand, And then later on, it's funny. Later on, I think it was that week. He started talking to me, and I don't know, when I was younger, I think that I was much more forgiving about stuff like this. Like, it just didn't matter. I guess a week went by and it was like it never happened almost.
Mm-hmm.
And it was something when I was real little. It was like the next day, if someone was a jerk to me, the next day I'd hang out with them. It didn't matter, you know. And I didn't hold any grudges. I think holding a grudge is something that you learn as you get older, you know. And so you know, I was talking about a week later. He's like, you know, if I let go of that chair, that would have been the end of everything, right? And I was like, that chair would not have hit me. It's like maybe you would try, but it wouldn't have hit me, you know. And then after that, he smiled, and after that, he never messed with me ever again. Never. No one did, not in that school, you know. And that was like that was a rough school for me too at the time. I was having a really hard time there, but that's really funny. It's such a funny kind of similar situation where they, you know, so I don't know what it is. I guess at that time it's just that amount of that respect, and really it comes down to a value thing. There are different levels of value, and there's different levels of value are called 6, 7, 8, and then 9 and 10 are kind of lumped together.
Mm-hmm.
And these different levels are, the 6 is called supplicative, and that is where you're kind of begging for attention or begging for acceptance. Obviously, that's the lowest form of value that you can have that is still social, besides being like catatonic and not talking at all. A 7 is combative dynamics, which is where someone feels like in order to get value, they have to make someone else feel worse. And that's basically what these guys were. They were combative dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
8 is competitive dynamics, and that's where you only feel like you're valuable if you're more valuable than everyone else around you. Hence competition, right? You have to be better than everybody. And then 9 and 10 are both cooperative dynamics, and that's where you only feel valuable if you make other people feel more valuable. And so the only long-lasting and true confident and true value, like true value, is cooperative dynamic value. And the way this kind of works is that confidence, the confidence scale is exactly this exact scale. It is 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And if you show the qualities of someone who is a cooperative thinker, for example, someone who's constantly complimenting people, giving out value, basically giving other people recognition for things, whenever you can, you know. If you do that often, they make other people feel better around you. People will typically follow you, and obviously they'll want to be around you because whenever they're around you, they feel more valuable. So the guys who were the bullies at our school were 7s, and the reason why they were 7s is because they used to be 6s. Every 7 used to be a 6. Every 7 who's combative, who's kind of mean, and tries to make you feel like crap, so they feel better that way. Basically, is testing people and reminding themselves that they're not how they used to be. So these guys, to us, whenever we passed these tests that they had, they kind of felt like they had done in some kind of perverse, weird way, had done a job of teaching us that the world isn't a safe place and that we should be jerks, you know, and we should be tough dudes. And it's interesting. It's all subconscious, and there's no, you know, they're not really thinking about that all the time. And you know, when you get a little bit older, and if it's still an issue when you get older, obviously it sort of shifts, and some people don't do that. But it's not a very effective way of teaching people either. Usually builds a lot of disrespect for the person, and if you don't respect somebody, you can't learn from them. So that's an issue. But it's interesting how we both had that kind of same lesson. I'm willing to bet that a lot of people, especially the USCCA members, have had something kind of similar that I wasn't super threatening, but kind of changed their perspective on things.
For sure, yeah. I would hope that everybody began carrying because of something that, you know, gave them a feeling like that, and not something that actually happened to them. I really pity the people who had to learn to carry concealed the hard way.
Right. No, I mean it's you know, if it's the hard way or not, I guess ultimately whatever you go through is worth it if it leads to you actually taking action. So
I'd like to point out something, Joshua.
Mm-hmm.
In both of your stories, you both mentioned that, you know, your height and weight, but when you talk about this in the Threats product of having a sense of dominance that comes from within, well, I was sort of the opposite. I mean, by the time I was in high school, I was 6'3", 200, between 2 and 250, like pretty much the whole time, and I never felt dominant, so it didn't really matter, you know. Like you talk about in the product that, you know, you can't be getting your source of feeling dominant from carrying a weapon or having training or anything. You know, it has to come from somewhere within. And like when I was I experienced the same things, even though I was most of the time bigger than the bullies, they would still bully me because I didn't feel like a confident, dominant person, and they could tell. So I think
Absolutely.
that's an important point to bring up as well.
Absolutely. And I think that, for Pat and I, looking back on that time when we were younger, pointing out as well, like our size at the time, I think that we were easy targets, not really because of our size, but because of the fight, the fight and the dog and not the dog and the fight, right?
Exactly. I was an easy target as well because they could tell that I was gonna just take it, and I just that's just it. It didn't matter that the height or weight or whatever just didn't
Yeah.
matter. It's the sense of
And
dominance.
what's funny is this is actually a really, really good point in that people who would mess with you, Brad, are different people who used to mess with Pat and I. People who would mess with Pat and I were looking for a victim. People who are messing with you were looking for some sort of a challenge. Because you're much larger than them. So, dominating you would be something a lot more. It'd be something that would be like worth putting on their resume, so to say. Like it would be a testament to their dominance.
Right.
At least for your size, only based on your size. And for smaller people, we were Pat and I had the very common victim sort of mentality where it was, we became victims because that's what we allowed people to think that we were. And so people would search for us and mess with us because it was easy, not because they wanted to gain something from it. It was just easy to do. And that's something that I hope to get into in a little bit during this interview. Is that's a major difference. There's two sort of general types of perpetrators, of types of assailants, and they are people who are either going to attack you to increase status for a challenge or attack you because you seem a victim. And being able to recognize those two different types of people, and just in general, will allow you to calibrate how you act around them to successfully diffuse the situation.
Very good. Yeah. Huh. Man. Yeah, this is going to be extremely interesting. And that actually, again, leads into even my next point, which I've actually decided to save now because my third thing happened while I was in Colorado with Brad. We were actually walking together, and it has a lot to do with the second story that we're going to be sharing, or analyzing, I should say. And I think it's going to be best told from Brad's perspective. I know the USCCA members have heard it from mine, and or at least most of them. I've told it on the forum, and I've also, I don't know, it seems like I told it at another point, but it'll be interesting to hear Brad's perspective because I think it's extremely enlightening. I mean, as armed citizens, we're sometimes not aware of our own presence, and it took kind of being with Brad to pull me out of what I thought was, what I was a complete bystander in, when actually I was kind of helping perpetrate or fuel the flames, I should say.
Cool.
So